with sickle cell, even the painkillers may at times fail. Your child is crying, you don't know what to do, you don't know where you can turn to, you have prayed your all, but here he's still in pain. And I remember there was a time this guy cried for 22 hours. The pain is not going. You are the only hope they are looking at. And he knows that probably being on your chest is a solution to his crisis, to his pain. But that pain is not going. And you look at yourself, you don't know what to do. The doctors have tried. You have tried what you could, and still, like, things are not just working. It can drive you nuts. It can drive you to the wall mentally. I'm Peter. I'm married with 2 children. Now the firstborn being a 5-year-old, and the second one is 2 years old. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. As a young person growing up, you actually be looking forward to having a family in the future, and then that future now is now. The future finally arrives and you realize you are a father. I'm here today to encourage mostly men. No one ever plans for some difficulties in their lives, but at one point or another, difficulties may come, and they may come in different shapes and sizes. But you really got to stand up and show up for your children. Our son was diagnosed with sickle cell anemia when he was 5 months old. It was a bit difficult to comprehend. It was very difficult to believe, because flashing back on our family backgrounds, there's no one who's ever had sickle cell. Sickle cell anemia, it's a trait that would run through the genes, and it would affect individuals through a family lineage. Now, through my lineage, there's no one who had sickle cell. My wife's lineage, no one had sickle cell. But you could have traits, carrier, that goes through the generations, and at some point now, when a trait meets a trait, it will now come out to be a sickler child. We've always loved traveling out on occasions. And so I remember in 2019, December, we had a time out with a group of friends. So we traveled out of town. It was a very hot season. So on our way back, it was a long journey. On our way back, upon reaching home, he was really crying. Examining his body, we found out that he had some swollen fingers, and we thought probably he had been bitten by something. So we only gave some Calpol, and we knew it would be a done deal. But he cried for like 2 days, and then it ceased. And then come January 1st, 2020, we again went out on a road trip. Of course, as young couples in a group. And that night, January is still a very hot season. And that night we didn't sleep. So the next day we decided to take him to hospital. And he was really in pain, crying, but we couldn't tell why this young man was crying. At hospital, the doctor says we go and test for, we do a test called HB electrophoresis, and we ask, what is this HB electrophoresis for? is a test to check for sickle cell. So we're asking ourselves, what is sickle cell related? At this time, the only symptom that was evident was some swollen joints on the legs, and then again swollen joints on the wrists. So asking ourselves, how is sickle cell related with the swollen joints, with the pain and this crying? We knew nothing about it. So still, we decide to go do this test. And now, the moment we're told from the first hospital that we go do a sickle cell test, we didn't take it very lightly. We didn't believe, we didn't accept. So we went to a second hospital. We again did the test, and as we were waiting for the results, because it takes time, it's not like an immediate result. You do probably wait for around from 3 days to 7 days to get the results. So in the time of the period of waiting for the first results, we went to the second hospital again to do. And so the moment we finished doing the test in the second hospital, we were waiting for the first results, and they come to be positive that he has sickle cell. We don't believe, then we rush to the third hospital to do the test again. So at the third hospital, the doctor is very experienced, and he examines, he talks to us, and he doesn't say we do the test. He only gives us materials to start reading about sickle cell. Because you want to get a second opinion, now that's the reason why you want to get a second opinion and a third opinion to be very sure that whatever you're being told is indeed, because you don't want to accept that this is it. Having had history about people who have this same condition within the society. And so now the third doctor in the third hospital does not subject us to any form of tests, but he gives us materials to read about sickle cell. He tries to educate us, and now he's counseling us what to expect, what sickle cell is, how to go about it. And he told us, yes, it could be true. This child has sickle cell, and so he educated us about sickle cell, how it comes to be, now what we need to do, how the path would now look like in terms of taking care and medication. At that point, now we were stricken. The second hospital, yes, the results were positive. So now with 2 positive written results from 2 hospitals and a confirmation from a third hospital from an experienced doctor, we said, well, that is now where we are, and we have now to pick up and do. Now, we went to the first hospital that happens now to be Gertrude's hospital, and now that is where he's had his care all through from that point. The life became a bit unbearable because now the every other day kind of life was like working from hospital very frequently. After that diagnosis from that month, barely 3 months would go without a crisis. A crisis would mean very painful episodes. And this pain the child will feel, it can be equated to very hot coal. Assuming you have put fire on coal and coal is burning at its peak, or charcoal burning at its peak. That magnitude of heat is what one with the sickle cell would feel in their bones. For a young child who is not yet speaking, it becomes very difficult even to manage, because this child would be crying because of so much pain, but they cannot tell you where the pain is. Like ours was, when it was diagnosed, yes, it was at 5 months. So this child can only cry and cry out their loudest because of this excruciating pain, but they cannot tell you which part of their bone is aching. You find that the pain comes in different parts for a sickler. It could be right inside the bones, it could be at the backbone, it could be at the joints, it could be different places. But either way, there is no medicine to cure sickle cell crisis or pain. The only management is through painkillers. And you find at times you can even be put on a dose of every 4 hours painkiller or every 6 hours painkiller as opposed to 8 hours. But you find at times even the 4 hours you give someone the painkiller, and now you probably even could have to interchange the brand. Every 4 hours, the first hour you use a different brand of painkiller. The next 4 or 6 hours you use a different brand of painkiller. But every 2 hours, in the midst of these 4 hours, the pain is there and it's high. So you find it becomes a norm to work from hospital. After every 2 weeks, there's a crisis. Every 1 month, there's a crisis. Every 3 months, there's a crisis. And so we were faced with uncertainties. Yes, we had identified the triggers, because for sicklers, there'll always be triggers, of which mainly would be extreme temperatures. Extreme cold would trigger crisis. Extreme high temperature would trigger crisis. For adults, stress would trigger crisis. So for a grown-up, they would know how to manage their triggers, and they can bear with it where it's bearable. Okay, the pain is not bearable anyway, but they can manage actually. They know these triggers, so I know how to act when this is happening. Now for the child, you can only manage if it is a cold time, a cold season, keep them warm. If it is a hot season, you let them loose. But either way, crisis would still come. And now it would depend also with the level or severity of their sickness. Some people would suffer severely. Some people probably medium pain, and some people less pain. Less pain is the fact that someone may get the painful episodes even after 6 months or even after 3 months. Some people may get these painful crises even every 2 weeks, every other day, like in the case of my son. They were so frequent. So you find you cannot go to hospital every other time, because hospital management is still painkillers. So if it is mild, we'll manage at home. You'll always have some painkillers you monitor. If in any case, the second day, the third day, the pain is not going away, you now have to go to hospital. And of course, with the regular checkups, and ensuring also medication as prescribed by your doctor. So from time to time, you find yourself in the hospital, you have to work from there, or you are in the hospital at night, in the morning you have to go to work, of course you have to deliver. So the challenges are so many, and the care also is a bit demanding. You find there's a diet you really need to maintain, and that's a vegetarian diet, at least to help him with the replication of cells and all that. Be it fruits, it now goes beyond every other normal diet. This, however, if you have to maintain a certain diet, it doesn't come cheaply. It comes actually at a cost. All in all is like trying to mitigate this crisis not to come, or like lessen the times through which these crises may become from time to time. Now, some basic knowledge about sickle cell. From the word sickle, you see that bent sort of a knife that is used to cut grass, that shape, sickle. So the red blood cells become sickle in shape. Normally, they should be donut shaped, round, the red blood cells. Now, when they become sickle, it means there will be no free movement of oxygenated blood through the body for normal body functioning. Now, when they become sickle, they come and probably clog at some point and block the veins, so the arteries, that will now hinder the normal flow of body functions. So when they block some space, you find there is now less oxygen or something of that sort, and that what now will cause pain to the joints. It may lead to other complications in a human body. It may cause kidney problems, liver problems, just the body organs. It can actually cause stroke as well because of lack of enough oxygen supplied to the brain. That would cause stroke. Many times we could not manage every other normal day-to-day program or activity. We would get disrupted. You're either at hospital in the night, or you are at work and you're told the crisis is so much, so you have to ask for permission to go pick the child and take to hospital. And at times you can't even reach home, so you organize how he's picked from home. You meet at the hospital and you are midway work or something. You find you cannot, you actually limited, even you can't travel somewhere far from them and stay away, the two of you. Like, one has to be around. If you have to travel, then you better travel with him. And you're also skeptical if you are to travel to extreme temperature zones. Like, you want to go to Mombasa, you're thinking like, will he survive the heat in Mombasa? Yeah. You want to go somewhere, you want to go to Limuru or whichever place, you remember about that temperature in that place and you have to think otherwise. So it comes with some limitations again. You're curtailed in what you can do in every other normal day-to-day life. The child can be very okay and very normal, playing and just okay in the morning. But in the evening, you'll be going to hospital in an ambulance. 4 p.m., you told he's crying and the pain is unbearable. You go to hospital and they check the vitals. The oxygen is already low. The pain cannot go away easily, and told oxygen is at 92. Someone who should, like, for a child, that is straight away admission, or any other normal person. So you find life became unpredictable in one way or another. You may have a plan, but that plan can change anytime. So it really called for support, more so from workplaces, which we received very well, and we really do appreciate that our employers are good enough to understand these situations, and we were able to have enough time to take care of the child during those periods. Now, I remember somewhere in 2022, actually 2021, I remember somewhere in 2021, he had a very painful crisis. We got admitted at Gertrude's. Upon getting admission at the hospital, you remember 2021, that is COVID period. And so during admission, we told one of his lungs has failed, and so it's critical. He's transferred to HDU. He's in HDU. 2-3 days down the line, again, you told he has contacted COVID. At this time, he's barely 2 years old. You told his lungs, one of his lungs has failed. That is actually acute chest syndrome. And now he's contacted COVID. To make it worse, all his veins have failed. And when all the veins failed now, like they cannot, the doctors cannot administer medication through any line. On the hands, the veins are gone. On the legs, the veins are gone. And so they actually had to access somewhere from the neck, put some pipe from the neck, and administer medication from the neck. So that experience was very traumatizing. It's funny enough, he really does not respond quickly to anesthesia. I don't know, the doctors couldn't explain as to why he never responded positively to anesthesia. So they would administer anesthesia, but he doesn't respond to it. They're doing like that procedure to insert the pipe or the cannula for him to get medication, but he doesn't, the anesthesia does not make him fall asleep. So they struggled. I remember they really struggled at that point because I think they did the first one. He woke up, he's staying awake. Second, I think he stayed awake. And now we were surprised looking at each other. Now what next? At some point, I think they asked us to leave the room so that they could manage. But you're outside, but you feel the way he's crying. I think they reach a point that they cannot administer more anesthesia, but they have to put this cannula or whatever they're putting through the neck for him to get medication. And these experiences were horrifying. At times you reach a point you're like losing hope that I don't think tomorrow is there for him. But he overcame all this by God's grace. It was only by God's grace that he overcame. Happy moments would be times when you've been at hospital. The hospital stay probably could have been 7 to 10 days or at times more. So the moment you released, you told that you're now going home. You as in, we could really feel the happiness that you're going back home. Going back home every other time was like an achievement. It was a very happy moment. Seeing him get happy, he would also get happy at times. Other symptoms we could check at times when he's about to go on crisis, he would have some symptoms. You'd see he's withdrawn, he's clingy, he wants to be carried all the time. You carry him and he's just on you. These are some of the signs when we straight away knew something is coming up, a crisis is coming up. And then you compare this moment with the moment when you're discharged from hospital, you're going back home, and he's so happy. He's usually in a very jovial mood. It just makes you happy to see him happy, and like if you making stories and like just laughing, just happy. So those moments were there. And so it was off and on, hospital, admission, care at home, every other time. And then earlier on at some point, we had asked our doctor. Initially, actually, this is on the, by the time he was diagnosed with sickle cell, we did some research. What is the cure to sickle cell? We found out that there was a bone marrow transplant process that could cure. Bone marrow transplant can be done in cases of blood disorders. And some of the known blood disorders now include sickle cell anemia, we have leukemia, we have plastic anemia, all these blood disorders. Anyone with blood disorder, if they went through bone marrow transplant, it would actually be a solution or a cure, mostly to those diseases that may not have direct cure. But now bone marrow transplant would come in as a last resort to a solution to that, or cure to that situation. Now we asked our doctor. We are told, we've learned that there is a cure for bone marrow, for sickle cell. There's a cure for sickle cell. We've learned about bone marrow transplant. Is it okay? We can go for bone marrow transplant. But the doctor said, not really. His case is not a transplant case. And later on, I agreed with my doctor. Not every sickle cell case is a bone marrow transplant case. Bone marrow transplant should be the last resort to sickle cell, because it also has its challenges through that journey. So not every other person who has sickle cell would really be recommended for bone marrow transplant. There are people who can manage, and the people who can actually live. There are people who have lived to their 30s, 40s, and even 50s with sickle cell. It means they did not face some adverse effects of sickle cell through their life. Like they were able to manage these pains, or the severity was not high to warrant a bone marrow transplant, or they had a second chance to live their life to the fullest. You understand that sickle cell would really, it really has high child mortality rate. It has high child mortality rate. And now it also depends with the suffering that a sickler probably is going through. So for one who has painful crises once or twice in a year, they can live with it. But for one who has crisis every other 2 weeks, every other 1 month, every month admission, every 3 months admission, you find it becomes very challenging. And also access to medical care would be very key, and to an expert to understand the management of sickle cell. I've come to learn that most children probably have died from sickle cell due to acute chest syndrome, where you find not every medical practitioner may be able to identify that now this is exactly what is happening. This is what exactly needs to be done. And since sickle cell probably is ideally it is a regional disease, there are some regions you'll not find it, there are some regions you'll find it. So that forms the fact that not every doctor would know how to handle a sickler and probably manage, or at times even identify the effects. So it squarely lies on a good expert to be able to identify the effects through the life of a sickler, to be able to say, this is what is happening, this is what we need to do, this is what we are going to do. Initially, when on diagnosis, our doctor had said he's okay, he doesn't need a bone marrow transplant when we asked about it. Now came April 2023. He exhibited the signs of falling into crisis, and we tried to manage it at home. He fell more weak, and within 3 days now we had to take him. We basically took him to hospital, He was checked and we were given medication and we went back home. And the next 2 to 3 days again, he felt more weak. And we had now to take him back to hospital. On the second time we're taking him to hospital, it was in early April, we find oxygen is at 62. So with the oxygen level at 62, the hospital branch now had to transfer him to the main branch in an ambulance. This was the third time actually he's being taken from the remote branch to the main branch in an ambulance, because the complications come in a way you cannot tell. As I said before, he's active and very happy in the morning, but at night you'll be admitted in the hospital and he's weak and not able to do any other thing, crying and probably in some very a big pain. And so this April, yes, he's taken care of, the doctors try to manage, but on the day of discharge, we realize not everything is okay. We see he's back to himself, he's smiling, but the face is somehow twisted. Smiling, one side of the face is smiling, one side of the face is intact, not moving. He uses his right hand. So at this point, the right hand now is withdrawn and he's reaching out to things with the left hand. The doctors do further examination. We do an MRI on the head, and fears are confirmed. He's gotten stroke at 3.5 years. And now this turns tables down. We now start another journey of managing stroke for a 3.5-year-old child. At that point, now our doctor changes tune. Our doctor now says, you had asked about the bone marrow transplant. And I said it was not necessary as at that time. But now it is the one and only way out of this situation. Because with the stroke, medics will understand, or any other person who has had an experience. I'm told once the first stroke has come, a second one is on its way. After the second one, a third one could be on its way. A fourth and a fifth one, you'll be permanently on a wheelchair. And so the doctor says the only way out now is the bone marrow transplant. We now have to explore those options. And now we start exploring the options for bone marrow transplant. Bone marrow transplant, previously it has never been done in Kenya. And so we find the only places that can do bone marrow transplant is South Africa or Egypt in Africa, or India, or in the US. Critically checking on logistics, moving to any other place, you now go deep down on research. You want to understand any other person who has ever done bone marrow transplant, you hear from them. Where did they do it? Was their doctor? How did it go? And all that. And so we land in India. And we resolve now, this journey takes us to India. The expenses in preparation for bone marrow transplant and actually through the process, it's a heavy one. It's not easy. It involves very high volumes of money. It's not a walk in the park. It's a capital intensive affair. And so we're checking where are we going to get this. So we've checked, we talked to some friends who already did this bone marrow transplant. We find which doctors did they use, which hospitals did they go to, and every possibility is pointing to India. Now we do some research and we find some top 3 doctors in India whom we could use. We approach and we get a quotation, and the bill is high. The insurance cannot take care of that kind of bill, and so you have to think out of the box. How will this happen? Of course, we make arrangements, and now you really have to come out and tell friends, this is my situation, this is what I'm now planning, I'm seeking for your help in 1 or 2 things. And I would say we're really thankful to God. I can say we had a very big family, of friends around us in the church, colleagues at work, family members, and we got so much support from the people around us, morally, spiritually, financially. And now came a time now we had now to travel to India. Before traveling, there is a need for preparation. When you do a bone marrow transplant, I will probably tell you what is this bone marrow transplant and the process it goes through. You remember we say sickle cell, the problem is actually with the red blood cells that become sickle and then clog at some point and then cause pain. Now, bone marrow transplant involves the process of, with a layman's language, changing the bone marrow, because it is the bone marrow that manufactures blood. Now you have to change the manufacturer of blood so that it can stop manufacturing sickle celled cells, the sickled cells, and you replace it with a manufacturer that will continually manufacture the normal cells. It involves getting a donor who does not have the condition of sickle cell, a normal person without sickle cell, to donate their bone marrow so that it can be transplanted onto the sickler for them to get better. Initially, for the donor, the doctors had to access the hip bone, which is considered to be rich with bone marrow, draw the bone marrow, and then transplant. But thank God, with the increase in technology, they no longer just access the hip bone to draw blood with some big syringe, probably as it used to happen in the past. And now the preparation of doing the bone marrow transplant, there are a lot of tests that you have to do. First, whoever is donating to you a bone marrow cannot be any other person. There are genes that must match. Out of these genes that must match, the sibling is considered to be the best donor, because the sibling has the genes both from the father and the mother. So the siblings, they share the parents. They both have same father, same mother. So basically, genes from mother and father would be similar to your sibling. After identifying a donor, or in the process of identifying the donor, these tests have to be done whether your sibling genes matches your genes. So like his genes had to be tested against his sibling genes. Apart from the sibling, we can also get a donor as you can also get the parent as a donor. The parent most likely or ideally may not be 100%. They may not match. A sibling may match. The genes may match 100%. The parent, the genes will not match 100% because as a child you got genes from two people. Now when we come back again to the sibling, there is only around 20 or 25% chances that you will have 100% match for your sibling. It is not guaranteed that all siblings will have 100% match of the genes. Around 25% chances. So you can have a 50% match, you can have 100% match, or you can even have less than 50% match. Genetics, it all depends. And so this test, in searching for the donor, we had to do the test, the patient, that is the firstborn son, against his only sibling, who was, by the time we started this preparation, by the time he was around 2.5 years, when we started this preparation, he was 9 months. So we started doing preparation and we wanted to test a 9 months baby to be the donor for his elder brother. We also have now to test, because you don't know how it will come out, and the tests are not done in Kenya. The hospital would collect samples and they are shipped out of the country. The labs in India or whichever country, South Africa, where it is shipped to, they'll now give back results and the doctor will interpret to you the results. So because of that possible back and forth, so we decided to do against the sibling and against myself. Before even we go to the idea of checking if the sibling can be a donor, we're also struggling with the fact that there is a possibility that the only sibling could also be a sickler. Because once one child is a sickler, it's also possible that other children, the siblings, could also be sickler. And so for a very long time, we lived in fear of the unknown. You don't know whether this child is also a sickler and will go the same path as the firstborn or not. And so since he was born, for the whole of these 9 months, you're struggling with the firstborn, and you're also struggling mentally. You're only praying at the back of your mind that may this sibling be okay. So he reaches 5 months, the same when we diagnosed the firstborn, and like, should we take the test? Should we not? And my wife said, no, I don't want to take the test. If you want to take, just go take the test. If you find it is the same, don't tell me. I want to live with it as it is. Only tell me if it is negative. And so I would say it was a very challenging time. You're dealing with a lot. You have to deal with work. You have to deal with the patient here, and you have to deal with the fear of unknown. And so it becomes a very complex situation in someone's life. And that's why I said initially, to all parents out there facing various and different challenges in your different situations, you really need to be there for each other. If someone is sick and say genetically, as in the case of sickle cell, it means it was not someone's mistake that a child is sick. It was not someone's mistake that your daughter or your son is sick. You accept the main and first thing is good to accept the situation, that this is it, and then see how to deal with it and provide the necessary support that your partner may need through that journey. You find you go through a lot. You have to manage the patient. You have probably a job that you have to manage, an income, how you have to check how people really would eat. Economically, you must be upstanding. And on this other end, it's possible ideally you can be battling mental situations where you pushed to the wall and you don't know what to do. I remember a time we were admitted in hospital, and so I'd taken the shift back home. I had left the mother with the boy in hospital. And now I'm coming now to relieve her so that she can go home and I remain in hospital. I was coming with the hope that probably he's now improved, but you come back, you've stayed in the hospital for, it's the third day you are in hospital. He's still in pain and he's crying. So you'd think coming to hospital is the solution for all your problems. But you find with the sickle cell, even the painkillers, as I said before, may at times fail to contain his situation, which may even warrant some very high profile painkillers to be administered to contain the pain. So before this is done, you find you're in a quagmire situation that can affect you mentally. Your child is crying, you don't know what to do, you don't know where you can turn to, you have prayed your all, but here he's still in pain. And I remember there was a time this guy cried for 22 hours. The pain is not going. He has been given the necessary painkillers that he could be given. He does not want to be put on the bed, and so you have to exchange carrying him in the room, and he's crying. So you find yourself devastated. You do not know. You do not know what to do. You try to offer support. Even a child, they would learn. They would know. They can see your face as a parent, and they have that ability to tell something is wrong, something is right. But the children would know. I didn't know that they would know. But I learned that children have ability to know when situations are bad and when situations are good. And now, you have to put a very brave face for this child. You are the only hope they are looking at. You get into the room and he's like, daddy, daddy. He's telling you about the pain. You carry them, and he knows that probably being on your chest is a solution to his crisis, to his pain. But that pain is not going. And you look at yourself, you don't know what to do. The doctors have tried. You have tried what you could, and still, like, things are not just working. It can drive you nuts. It can drive you to the wall mentally. And so if you really don't get, at times if you don't get a good support system from the people around you, someone may run mad. It's very possible. We are now told that bone marrow transplant is the only way out. And first, before every other thing, we have to get a donor. Before you start the journey that I'm now going to whichever place to do a bone marrow transplant, you must do tests to get a donor. Donor, best option, first preference, the sibling who could be who now shares the genes as the sick one, because they have genes from both parents. And now here we have his only brother, who is 9 months old and whom we do not know his states. And we are told we now have to test whether he is a sickler or not. And that drives you again to the wall mentally. And so, yes, fast forward, we do the test. And in the waiting period, you do not want, in a way, you do not want to see the doctor. In a way, you want to see the doctor with good news, because you have mixed reaction, you don't know what is happening. And we had a friend of ours, actually our best couple. They were very, very supportive, and she actually helped us in prayer. She took her time even to fast, so that when we get the results, we get a positive results. That the follower, the younger brother, will be okay and free from sickle cell, so that he could be of help to the older brother. And a few days after this, after the test is done, we called the pathologist, calls us, lays the results on the table, and you breathe in heavily, like, come what may, as it may please the Lord. And he says, well, the brother is okay. And you thank God, and you breathe a sigh of relief, and you say, thank you, Jesus. Now the next phase of preparation, tests. The brother is okay, and we thank God in this situation. And now we have to do the second test to check if the genes match, and if any of us can be a donor to him. Because it's also possible that you may find the sibling that the genes do not match in a way that the doctors would accept to use him as a donor. Now we do a test for the younger brother, and we do a test for myself, because also very expensive tests. They also have to be shipped out of the country. And so we have a long 1 week waiting for the results. And we told in preparation, the sibling may match, the sibling may not match. A match in terms of, it also has percentages. It can be 100% match, which is the best option. Less than 100%, some doctors would agree to do a bone marrow transplant with less than 100%. Some will not do with less than 100%. So not all doctors, not all the experts doing the bone marrow transplant, not all hospitals will accept less than 100% match to do the bone marrow transplant. Now, the main reason why tests must be done to ascertain the genetics, if they match, the genes from the possible donor to the recipient or the sickler. The main reason why these tests have to be done, genes can react, and genes can mutate. And if you mix a gene with another gene and they are not compatible, you can imagine what that can be. Medically, it will lead to fatality. If you check even ideally what scientists do on animals before even they crossbreed and all that, they have to pick this gene and test with this gene and try to merge these genes and see what it will bring. And so on a worst case scenario, yes, there's fatality. Another bit, if a gene which does not match another gene mixed together, there would be complications. When genes mutate, if you watch science fiction, someone can be a zombie, least to states on that. But for human genes, basically, if they don't match, you mix them, fatality. And so that's why they have to be very precise. Now, when there are more adverse situations, you may fail to get a donor from the sibling. The next person now would be the parent. In as much as there has been the World Bank sort of, there's like we have blood bank, we also have the donor bank for bone marrow. There are people who have donated, it happens in the first world countries, they just donate their bone marrows. The results or the genes are put in a database or in some database, and then they check if someone would match, they would donate at a fee or for free. But that also still has some implications. The genes may match, but when they come to specific test again, down they find it cannot go through. It cannot be used. So if it is not a family member, the first people you'll check for are immediate family members. And as you said, the sibling, for it to have 100% match is around 20 or 25%. The parent will definitely not be 100%, will be around 50 or thereabout match. And so results are brought to us. We sit down again on the table, and it's a moment of do or die. Will we get a match? Or will we not get a match? Not getting a match means another journey again of searching for any close relative to be tested again. I remember the tests are not very cheaply done. The tests are costly. At this point, you're waiting for the results. You're not yourself. Someone may see you walking, thinking a normal person is walking, but you're not yourself. You feel either like you are a whole tree trunk moving, just going your way. At times you don't know where you're going. You're just trying to fix things, work out. And this is a point where you find if you don't get someone you're talking to, if you don't get a support system, if your partner runs away from you, like there are instances where some partners have done the same. If your family members, probably your in-laws, decide to put you aside, it can be catastrophic for you. That's why I speak out to men out there specifically, and even to ladies by extension. Every situation you find yourself in within the family niche, on medical grounds, whichever way, please be a support system to your partner, be a support system to your in-laws, be a support system to your brothers and to your sisters. When I talk about support system, I necessarily do not mean financial support system. I mean emotional support system, psychological support system, just for someone to feel the warmth that someone is around them, that people are around them, that emotional support that you give someone, a word of "it will be well," or a word of "it is well," or just a word of "do not worry, this situation is manageable," just a word of "I'm praying for you," a word of you are in my thoughts, just a visit, you see, just a call. By the how are you doing? I was just checking on you. I'm very much with you through this process. Some very little kind words that would go long, would go a long way to make someone feel that they really belong. It is very necessary and it is very important. And the people around me, I really found that, and it helped me get along. It helped my wife get along. Here we are, we've gone again to see the pathologist, and she's about to open the envelope containing the results, whether we have a donor or we don't have a donor. She opens the envelope and displays my results, and we told out of 12 tests, I only match with him 6, and that is 50% match. And then we're wondering now, what will be the next for the sibling? Remember, I told you the sibling, for bone marrow transplant, they prefer 100%. And 100% in a sibling is also not a guarantee. It can be half match as well. And so she opens the second envelope, and the results comes out at 100% match. And you feel like crying. Because you're in front of the doctor, you have to hold your tears of joy. But deep down your heart, you're so thankful to God and actually say, thank you, God. It's a miracle. It's a miracle because here we're dealing with only one sibling, and the only sibling turns out to be 100% match. And so that really encourages us and gives us the hope for the future, hope for tomorrow. And you say, yes, thank you, Jesus, for this far. You know, at some point we were looking at why was Jabin sick? Why was he sick? You know, you could only console yourself with why? Because there's a reason. You find there's a reason for everything, and you only got to say that the reason for him being sick, probably it will be at some point for God's name to be glorified. We did not know how it would be the next day, every other day, unfolding, every week unfolding. But I would just tell my wife that probably Jabin is sick so that one day God's name would be glorified. We were yet to realize what was in store for us. And now that is May. Within May we've gotten the results, and now we have between May we now after actually getting after now getting the results, we further our discussions with the identified doctors and hospitals. As we already got the quotation, and now we have to do some local procedures. The procedures that you really have to undergo in terms of approvals with the Ministry of Health, of course, with your employer. Of course, you also preparing financially how you must go and manage something to note that bone marrow transplant treatment plan is not a 2 weeks affair, and it is not 1 month, and it is not 2. At the very bare minimum, it may go at 5 months. They would say 4 months. Ideally, treatment, it's possible treatment can take 4 months, but it never takes 4 months. It will go up to 5 or 6 months, and 6 months is usually the uptime for the treatment. Reason being, yes, the treatment plan would be there, which ideally consolidated would go to 4 months. But in between the bone marrow transplant, what I came to realize, there are complications that emerge medically, that when they emerge, the doctors have to deal with them before going to the next phase of treatment. And every other time there's a complication that emerges that must be dealt with, it elongates the treatment plan. And that is how you'll find yourself going to the 5th and up to the 6th month. And now you want to ask your employer for 6 months off duty to take your son for treatment, and you want to ask your employer for financial support because it runs into millions and the insurance cannot take care of it, and you want to organize yourself how you're going to stay in a foreign land, basically from scratch. 6 months, I mean half a year. Yes, and that is exactly the duration we took when we went. So fast forward, during his management, from the time he gets stroke to the time we are preparing, he gets stroke in April, on 28th of April, and we travel to India on 11th September. In between here, we have to manage the patient with whichever way you can, by God's grace, for them not to get a second stroke, because they are still prone to the second stroke. And so part of this management means transfusion. And up to the time he is now traveling, at 3 years, he has had 10 transfusions. Myself, I've never had any transfusion. At 3 years, he has had transfusion. By the time he's getting the transplant, he has had 13 transfusions. And that tells you just how critical the journey becomes. Every time you get admitted to hospital through that journey, the blood level has run low. Every other time the blood level has run low. Because with the sickle cell, in layman's language, it actually eats blood. The blood will just run low every other time. And one of the management, apart from the painkillers, when the blood runs low, you have to be transfused. And on 11th September comes, and we travel out of the country. Of course, with a lot of support from our employers, our family members, and the community around us, that's the church. I will talk about the social capital around, which is a very key thing. This process taught me one thing, that it's really good to stay well with people in the society. I'm imagining a case where if I needed help or I needed help, but I'm not able to get help from any of my family members because I never stayed with them well, any of my friends because I never stayed with them well, any of my church mates because I never stayed with them well. I can't get help from my employer probably because I never worked well with my employer and all that. And it really calls for sobriety to each and every individual because you never know what tomorrow holds, and no man is an island. You will not find yourself being able to do everything on your own. It happens for very few people probably, but for every other person out there, it's my advice is really good to stay well with people. You may not be in a position, like we were not in a position to do it on our own, and people really came to our aid, and that was just out of this world. So we have the second phase of life in India. Of course, there is the patient, there is myself, there is the young one. Now he's now around one year. By the time we are going, he's around 1 year 3 months. By the time he's donating his bone marrow for the brother, he's 1 year 4 months. And people like how, like, you just sympathize. People knew, like, will he survive? You may end up, he is going to donate his bone marrow, and he may end up, because people know when you go through a procedure, when you go through a process medically, you may, ideally he is donating an organ. So the process of donating an organ, no one knows whether they're going to wake up from that theater bed or from whichever bed or from whichever situation. You don't know. So a number of people fear for the donor who is just so young and knows nothing, and here they have to probably help their only brother. Now, initially, by the just to take you back, initially, for bone marrow transplant, the doctors recommended, it was clearly a requirement that the donor had to be minimum of 9 years, as well as the recipient. And now here we had a 2-3-year-old who needed bone marrow transplant, and a sibling of 9 months was a possible donor. And with history that the minimum age for bone marrow transplant is to donate or to receive 9 years. And we were now put aback, like, how will it happen? Will we wait for 9 years? He's 2. He's diagnosed at actually 5 months. So these conversations we are having at around 1 year, around between 6 months to 1 year. Will we wait until he's 9 years old before that bone marrow transplant, or what will we do? But good enough, this requirement of 9 years for the donor was not, or even the recipient was not, there are not medical reasons. They were actually human rights reasons, saying that below 9 years, no one can consent. A child, the donor may not be able to consent that they want to donate their bone marrow to their sibling. And so in their research in some institute, the American Medical Institute or some of that sort, some medical body, when they did their research, they found out that there was no single 9-year-old who consent was sought from and they denied helping their siblings. all of them who reached 9 years old consented to donate the bone marrow. Also checking on the rights of the patient. The patient, yes, they are below 9, but they are suffering. In their suffering, they also have right to life. They need to be helped because it was not their choice that they are suffering. And so denying them the process of treatment, of bone marrow transplant treatment, that they are not 9 years old, was also infringing to their rights to life. And so that bit of clause was scrapped off. And by the time we are 3.5 years old, we are now able to have solid conversations that even this 9-month-old baby can actually be a donor to his 3.5-year-old brother. So in a way that also brought some sigh of relief. It was a different conversation from the time we started asking about it up to the time we are now having the conversation that we now must do the bone marrow transplant. So fast forward, we land in India. All of us, the 4 of us, the nuclear family.